Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the sixth and final module of the Healthy Lifestyle program, in which we'll talk about making habits that last based on everything that you've learned in this program. So, objectives for this habit include understanding the four stages of habits, learning strategies to implement good habits and break bad ones, applying habit principles to the Healthy Lifestyle program, and creating an action plan for getting back on track with good habits. And I would like to mention that this presentation is highly influenced and based on the principles presented in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. If you're interested in learning more about these concepts, I highly recommend picking it up. It's a great and easy read. Right, so basically our brains work on habit loops, and there are four stages to these habit loops. So your everyday habits, even the ones you never think about, like brushing your teeth, essentially form the basis of who you are. They determine your thoughts, personality, and behaviors. However, you are not necessarily born with these habits. Although our genetics play an important role in our behaviors, most of our habits developed as a response to a stimulus in our environment. Let's think about a cat trapped in a box, for example. Let's say there's a lever inside the box that releases a treat every time the cat steps on it. Eventually, if the cat is trapped inside the box for long enough, it will realize that pressing the lever allows it to access food, and each time the cat enters the box again, it will likely go straight for the lever to get another treat. This cat has formed a habit in response to its environment, which leads to a desired reward, which is the treat. And human behavior operates in largely the same way. The human mind evolved to predict future events. Without even knowing it, we are constantly scanning our internal and external environments to predict when a reward can be found. This was essential for our ancient ancestors who were always on the lookout for primary rewards such as food and water. And although our desired rewards have changed, habits are still created the same way. Our habits develop through four stages, divided into two phases, the problem phase and the solution phase. In the problem phase of habit formation, we have cue and craving. In the second, solution phase of habit formation, we have response and reward. Your brain runs through each stage every time a stimulus is perceived in the environment at such a high speed that we don't even realize it is happening. And we wouldn't even know that it was happening unless I talked about it with you now. And understanding how each stage works and can help you to foster habits that are best tailored to your goals and the life you wish to achieve, as well as implementing everything that you've learned in this healthy lifestyle program. So, going forward, we'll discuss each stage as well as associated strategies for each one in more depth. So first we have cues, which tell our brain to initiate a behavior in order to receive a reward. They are that environmental stimulus that causes us to act in a certain way. For example, in the case of the cat described earlier, its cue to go to the lever where the treat would be released was being placed inside the box. So cues come from five main sources: time, location, preceding event, emotional state, and the people around us. So time is probably the most common of all the cues. Think about, for example, your morning coffee or checking your phone's messages as soon as your alarm goes off. These are all habits that are strongly tied to a certain time of day, and if you pay enough attention, you may notice even more time-based habits you weren't aware of, like reaching for a snack around the same time of the day. You can use time-based habits to your advantage. For example, I like to register for fitness classes on the same days each week, so I know that no matter how lazy I feel or how bad of a day I've had, I'll be going to the gym on the same days and at the same time each week. Next is location, which may be one of the most powerful types of cues. For example, you might find that every time you go to the kitchen, you open the refrigerator even when you're not hungry. And because you've already opened the refrigerator and you're already looking inside, you may pull out a snack, a little midday snack that you weren't planning on and that you don't actually really need because you're not hungry, which of course can kind of disrupt any healthy eating plans you may have had for yourself if the snack that you're pulling out isn't necessarily the best option. However, you can use new locations to build new habits since your brain is already accustomed to um, since your brain is not already accustomed to a routine or certain cues in that new environment. For example, instead of going straight home after work, where you may be confronted with cues that tell you to take a nap um, or lay on the couch watching TV, instead, you can head to a nearby park and walk for a mile. So eventually, leaving work will be associated with going to the park for a walk rather than going home to watch TV. Many habits also occur in response to a preceding event. For example, checking your phone and scrolling through social media may be a response to your phone buzzing or your Apple Watch vibrating. Habit stacking, which combines a new habit with an existing habit, is a way of using preceding events to your advantage. For example, you can use logging into your computer at work as a cue to say one good thing that happened to you that morning, or just saying one thing you're grateful for in order to practice gratitude in general. And if you've ever eaten half a bucket of ice cream after a bad day at work, then you know that emotional states can be huge cues for certain behaviors. Unfortunately, changes in emotional states often lead to more bad habits than good ones. You can work against this by recognizing when you are taking an action in response to an emotion. For example, if you're addicted to online shopping, you may notice that being bored is a cue to browse your favorite clothing sites. You could try keeping a book around to read a chapter every time you feel the itch to browse, or you can try a stretching break instead, just something that will distract you and make you feel less bored instead of going to the online shopping. Other people can also serve as cues for different behaviors. As humans, we tend to imitate the behavior of the people around us. That is why college students go out to bars on the weekend, or smokers pick up the habit from other smokers. In search of acceptance, we become like the people around us. You may have heard the common phrase, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." That is very true. So, in order to build good habits or better habits, hang out with the people who have the habits that you want to have. So if you want to be a reader, join a book club. If you want to spend more time outdoors, join a hiking group. Whatever you got to do, just find the people who already do the thing that you want to do. And in general, you can use cues to build good habits by making them obvious. So many of the examples we described above, such as going to the park after work or surrounding yourself with people who have the habits you want to have, are all about making a desired behavior front and center in your mind, making it more obvious. On the flip side of that, you can also use cues to break bad habits by making those habits invisible. Think out of sight, out of mind. So if you need to drink fewer sugary beverages, place them in the back of your fridge or avoid that aisle in the grocery store entirely so that you don't bring any home with you. And so, following a cue from our environment, we experience a craving, which is our motivation behind our habits. So, cravings are not necessarily about the habit itself. You're not craving doing that action. What you're craving is the state provided by performing that habit. So, for example, runners compete in marathons, not for the sake of running itself, but for the recognition of receiving a medal at the end of the race. And in theory, just about any stimulus could serve as a cue for an individual, but not all individuals will respond to the same cue in the same way. For example, if you're an avid surfer, you may feel a craving to surf in response to hearing the waves at the beach, whereas someone who doesn't enjoy being in the water will not experience a craving from the cue of hearing waves. So the way to use cravings to our advantage in creating good habits is to make that habit attractive. For example, I found that keeping my vitamins in one of those regular, plain old boring pill cases, divided by the days of the week, just led me to keep forgetting to take my vitamins because the pill case kind of just faded into the background of my medicine cabinet. However, my grandmother recently gifted me with this antique crystal jar that just happens to be the perfect size for keeping my vitamins for the week, and is also the perfect size for just sitting on my bathroom sink, and it's very pretty, so I don't mind having it there on my bathroom sink as opposed to the vitamin pill case. And since moving my vitamins into this much more attractive and centrally placed, so it's more obvious, container, I have not forgotten to take my vitamins. And then flipping that around, we can use cravings to make a bad habit unattractive. This mainly relies on reframing or focusing on the benefits of performing a different behavior rather than the drawbacks of performing our regular behavior. For example, a smoker trying to break his habit by reminding himself that smoking causes lung cancer or tooth decay is still focused on smoking because they're still saying to themselves, I can't smoke because it will give me lung cancer. But they're still repeating the word smoke, which just serves as a cue to go smoke. And so this only increases their desire for a cigarette. Instead, that person should switch out smoking with chewing gum. And then instead, their thoughts will go more like, oh, chewing gum will make my breath smell better. It'll give me more fresh breath, which does not create a craving for smoking because they're not thinking of the word smoking. And instead, they're focusing on chewing gum. And so when a cue and craving are signaled to our brain, a habit will occur in response. And the response that occurs is entirely dependent on how motivated you are, or how strong the craving is, and what obstacles lie between you and the desired reward. If either of these two factors are not present, the behavior will not occur. Therefore, in order to make a good habit, you should make it as easy as possible. This could mean packing your gym bag the night before fitness class, meal prepping on Saturdays, or setting a timer on your phone that locks you out of social media apps once you've reached the daily limit so you already know when you've had enough of social media. And on the flip side, breaking a bad habit is easy when you make it difficult to perform. So if you place your TV and its remote in your closet after each use, then binging TV shows becomes a lot more difficult because you have to go into your closet, pick up your heavy TV, carry it out to the living room, put it back in its spot, plug it back in, then go back to your room, get the remote, and then turn on the TV. And even though that might sound kind of silly, just those added obstacles at the end of a long day is probably going to make you less likely to binge TV, and instead you'll do something else like exercising or reading a book or whatever other more productive thing you'd like to do. Right, and finally, we have rewards, which are what we hope to gain by performing a specific habit. And they are the most important stage of the habit loop, as they create the feedback loop, which prompts us to continue performing the behaviors. Rewards do this in two ways. They satisfy us and they teach us. Rewards we experience from a certain behavior, such as the release of endorphins we get from exercising, satisfy the craving we first experienced. So in this case, it might be relieving stress or fatigue. It might boost our confidence, something along those lines. And so this satisfied feeling teaches us that performing this specific behavior makes us feel good. It gets us to where we want to be, which makes us more likely to repeat it in the future. For example, I feel more confident when I exercise, so I continue to attend fitness classes. Thus, a feedback loop is created. In order to build a good habit, we have to make it satisfying. A great way to make new habits satisfying is by using a habit tracker. Our brains naturally get excited by seeing squares fill up on a calendar, but a habit tracker doesn't just have to be in the form of checkboxes. If you struggle to respond to emails at work, for example, you can move a paperclip from a full container to an empty container each time you respond to an email. And again, this might seem silly, but as the second container begins to fill up, you'll feel a sense of productivity and satisfaction seeing the progress that you're making, like actually visually seeing it, and that will motivate you to continue completing that task. And in order to break a bad habit, you have to make it unsatisfying. One recommendation for this would be getting an accountability partner. So by agreeing to go to the gym with someone, you're going to feel bad canceling on them, so you're more likely to just show up instead of trying to think up an excuse of why you can't go to the gym. Or if you want to eat better and you ask someone to go to the grocery store with you, so you make healthier food shopping choices, you're going to feel bad putting a bag of Cheetos into your cart instead of a bag of apples. And so to put it all together, here's another example of a habit loop. So first there's the cue in this example, which would be passing a donut shop on the way to work. And this cue causes a craving in which you now start to think about how great a donut would taste on your 8 a.m. commute to work. And then there's a response where you end up stopping at the donut shop to buy a donut. And then there's the reward, which is the satisfied, happy feeling you get when you eat that wonderful, delicious, sugary donut. And that is now tied to your morning commute. So over time, linking your morning commute to having a donut obviously could lead to some health complications, or it could just make you not feel great. Maybe you want to save the money instead of buying that donut, whatever it may be. You may want to change that habit that you've created. So if you were to change your morning commute route, you would eliminate the cue, you'd forget the craving, you'd make the response impossible, and you'd change your reward to a healthier lifestyle or to more money in your bank account, whatever it may be that you're searching for, rather than that sugary treat. So just by changing one thing, we're able to break the habit loop entirely. So you can see how when you're working on your habits, you don't necessarily have to create a strategy for each and every stage of the habit loop. You just have to find the one that works for you. And that might be in the cue phase, that might be in the response phase, wherever it may be, just whatever strategy works best for you. And so there are some additional strategies for building habits that are going to last. And the first one is a mantra that I really like, which is never miss twice. Of course, everyone's going to slip up at some point. You can't make it to the gym every day. Things come up. You might have a doctor's appointment, whatever the case may be. But if it ever happens, make sure not to miss twice. So make sure that the next fitness class you're there for on time. And the next thing to do is start with small habits. You're obviously not going to go from living a sedentary life to running 10 miles every day. That is too big of a habit to try to implement. But you can just start by increasing your daily step count just by parking a little further from the entrance to your office every day. You can also try breaking habits into chunks, which helps you to maintain momentum, which is extremely important by breaking up a bigger habit into more attainable goals. So if you're building towards 20 minutes of meditation a day, for example, you can instead do 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes at night instead of doing it all in one go, which makes it a lot more digestible to do. And then also focus on making tiny improvements. A 1% increase each day compounds very quickly, just like our money in a savings account. So you want to incorporate more fruits and veggies into your diet. Maybe try adding an apple to your lunchbox each day and make sure to eat it before leaving work. And then after a week, add a side of broccoli to your lunch and eat that as well as the apple each day. And then continue to slowly build from there as you get more and more accustomed to eating fruits and vegetables. Then also stick to a sustainable pace. So progress is made by being consistent and patient rather than going all for it at once. So increasing the number of phone calls you make or emails you send at work will most likely be better done one at a time rather than like trying to force 10 every hour. Just try with maybe 5 every hour, and then the next day 6 every hour, and so on and so forth. Great. So now thinking about good habits for a healthy lifestyle. So of course, in our previous modules, we discussed physical activity, nutrition, energy balance, sleep, and stress management. So how do the 4 stages of habits apply to each module in the healthy lifestyle program? And this is going to be different for everyone. So think of ways that you can apply the strategies discussed just in the first half of this presentation to the previous modules and what you've learned in the previous modules. So for example, for nutrition, it might just be keeping your fruits in a nice, pretty bowl somewhere very visible in your kitchen. For sleep, it may be having your HomePod or Alexa or Google Home, whatever it may be, playing a very relaxing type of music or sound at a certain time each night. So you kind of get that habit stacking in there where that signals to you that it's time to go to bed or something like that. Just try to think of where you can put in those cues, those cravings, those responses, and those rewards into each module. And I don't want to give too many examples because it's going to be different for everyone. So just try to think about what has worked for you in the past and what can work for you in the future. All right, and so when a slip in progress does occur, which again, these are normal, they're going to happen, I recommend creating an action plan in case you lose track of your habit, just to reorient yourself and get started again. So in creating this action plan, ask yourself what caused the slip? How can this be avoided in the future? How can I stay motivated to perform the behavior? What about this behavior was difficult for me? How do I make this easier for myself? Who can keep me accountable and sticking to my habit? And what do I get if I'm successful in sticking to my habit? So for an example for how this looked like for me, so I've always had a problem sticking to a regular exercise routine. And recently I started going to the gym, but I found that, going to the gym, I didn't really know what to do. I'm not too big into lifting weights or anything like that. I was just kind of confused. I would maybe do the treadmill, maybe the Stairmaster, maybe try doing a little bit of weightlifting, but I really didn't know what to do. So then I just stopped going to the gym, of course, because I just felt kind of lost while I was there. Then I asked myself, why did I stop going to the gym? Oh, it's because I didn't know what to do when I was there. Okay, well, what resources are in place for me to maybe learn how to use the gym or surround myself with people who know how to use the gym? And then I realized that since I'm a student, I can use the Rec Sports. They have fitness classes that are free for me as a student. And so I could just attend those fitness classes. They have a variety of them. So I just looked online, saw which ones fit my schedule, and signed up for them. And now I feel I'm more consistent with my workout routine because I have those fitness classes and I've overcome the hurdle of not knowing what to do when I'm at the gym because I go to these fitness classes and they just tell me what to do, which is fantastic. Great, so our take-home messages today are that there are 4 stages to any habit, which include cue, response, and reward. And focusing on each stage can help us to create healthy habits and break bad ones. Never miss twice. Start with small habits, break habits into chunks, make tiny improvements, and stick to a sustainable pace are additional strategies for enhancing our habits. And the principles of habit formation can be applied to physical activity, nutrition, energy balance, sleep, and stress management. And creating an action plan in the event of a slip in progress can be a very beneficial way to get back on track. All right, so congratulations. You have completed the Healthy Lifestyle program. Thank you so much for sticking around for all 6 modules, or if you only attended the modules that made the most sense for you, thank you still for attending. We hope that you find ways to stay consistent and persistent. Make sure to find activities that you enjoy and methods that work for you. And always look back at these presentations in your handouts, just to look back at your thoughts, maybe look back at your progress that you've made, and just, to create an action plan for how you can continue moving forward. And yeah, just enjoy your healthy lifestyle. Thank you.